Welcome to PROcrastinate. My name is Athena Kablenyu. I'm a podcaster, also a comedian and a writer, and I wanted to talk to other creatives and interesting people how they get stuff done. You know, if you work in a factory and you want to get more work done, you can dial something up to like maybe 10 or 11 and something goes quicker, maybe a conveyor belt, and you get more or something done. But when you're producing stuff from your brain, like, how does that work? How do you get stuff done when we live in the time of distraction? Anyway, my guest this week is Tiernan Douieb. He's a fantastic comedian and a brilliant writer, and if you know me, you know he's my co-pilot on our, well, I say it's a fantastic podcast because, and I'm a bit biased, but it is fantastic, Bust or Trust, a podcast for kids that helps teach them lessons in how to argue with people who disagree with you and, debate, not argue, how to debate with people who disagree with you, and critical thought. Anyway, me and Tiernan have a lovely chat about parenting and social media, which hasn't appeared as much on this podcast as I thought. I'm so excited for you to hear this chat. Tiernan really is a cool dude, very funny, very thoughtful, very intelligent, and it was a pleasure to chat with him. Enjoy. Welcome to Procrastination, because I've stylized it with the pro to professional. Tiernan Douieb, first of all, are you a procrastinator, and is there something you should be doing, but you're here doing this instead?
Well, I should be doing, in fact, I should be doing for a script for the other podcast I do with you, but I am not. So when they come to ask me why, I'll be like, well, it's Athena's fault, and you can, no. And do you know what? I have got better at not being a procrastinator, but I still have like really bad days of it, and I'm gonna be. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Of course you are.
Okay. Well, it wasn't even a swear. I was just gonna say I'm gonna be a total dick. But I remember I've sort of learned. I've got to a point now where I feel like the procrastinating is necessary. I've managed to teach myself that if I'm having a day where I can't write and I have to procrastinate, it's because I know something's gonna come to me later and I almost need the downtime, and it's a total cheat mode that makes it seem like I'm not wasting time when I have. That's what I tell myself.
I think what you're saying is completely correct, and you're not the first person to say this, and now that means I've got to put that person's podcast out before your podcast. So I've got to remember the order to put these out in. But someone said something and it was about kind of like just waiting for you're not procrastinating, you're just waiting for the moment to do the work to come, you know, and it's like a train. But whilst you're waiting, you're not doing your thumbs, like you're doing something that's quite active. And I started this podcast because I think I wanted to be kinder to myself when it came to thinking about how I use my time and how I spend my time. And I also wanted to procrastinate. So I thought I'd do a podcast. But what happens is what I find is, as I have gotten deeper and deeper into a freelancing career and then transitioning to a completely freelance kind of situation, I procrastinate more because that is part of the process, you know. And I think when it's funny actually, because you said you got better at procrastinating. So can you talk a bit about how you got better and what kind of things you were doing when you felt like it was getting out of hand, maybe?
Well, one of the things I've really slowed down on being on social media. And I think Twitter was really bad for me procrastinating because especially when there were big news stories and things, I would spend a lot of time sitting on there trying to come up with jokes for that instead of doing the work that I was actually meant to be doing. And in my head, that still worked because it was still joke writing, but it wasn't, and it was really unhelpful and, and just horrible. And I've really made quite a conscious effort to kind of social media less, but I genuinely think when my daughter started going to school, suddenly I only had so many hours in the day to do stuff, and it's almost like survival mode. I went, oh, well, I'd better do it then because I don't have all this time. And before kids, I had loads of time. I don't know what I did with it. I binge watch shows. I played a lot more computer. I would just have whole days where I'd just go walk and go places and do what I liked. And now I am right. I've got we drop off at 10 to 9. I get home 10 past 9. I've got until like 2:45. And in that time, I just go work mode because I can. And I think that's been sometimes you almost need, I feel like I need those limits and deadlines. And I think that's also, I'll just a slight tangent, but primarily my work before was stand up. And the only person I had to write new material for was me. Whereas now I'm writing scripts and I've got deadlines, and that helps massively because there's pressure from someone else. When it was just me, I was like, I'll get it done, and I would not get it done. And now I have to get it done.
Boundaries are so important. I just find boundaries a little bit like, it's a bit of a weird analogy, but you know, like in movies, when people are in some kind of space that's getting smaller and smaller, or a tank that's getting filled up with more and more water, it's like, oh, I need a solution. Actually, if I don't have a solution, I will die. That's what time boundaries are like for me. Like, if I have time boundaries, like getting closer and closer and closer to like some kind of urgency, that it's like, I need to do this. I have to find a solution, i.e. I've got to do the work, otherwise, well, I won't die, I'll just have to send an email and explain why I haven't done something. But it's that kind of, like, you know, the waste compactor in Star Wars, when they're in the waste, that's how I feel. Like, it's just getting, they're running out of space, and it's like, what can we do? Oh, okay, I better bash out that thing then. But what we don't realize is like, let's say you write a script and then you send it somewhere and they send it back and they say something like, this is great, insert joke here. And it's like, oh my, like, how do you, I need a boundary, a time boundary, so I can think of the joke to insert there. If I didn't have a deadline, then I'd just be creating. It just wouldn't, my brain wouldn't kick into gear. So I need boundaries. You are the first person, bizarrely enough, crazily enough, to mention social media.
Really?
It's not come up on this, but which is really interesting, because I am I know I'm phenomenally addicted to social media, particularly Twitter. I don't know why. I get not that much joy from it, not that much attention. What did you use a lot of? And I mean, you said it already, just like you start off looking for work, you looking at it because it's like work, because you write about the news and you could put jokes in it, and then it just sort of spirals. Are you a cat person? Do you like to look at cat videos?
No, it was endless joke, which again is kind of work, isn't it? It was endless jokes. I would make a point of a bit like you do. You do the same, really. You joke about lots of stuff, and that's what I would like. Every news story, I'd try and think, oh, I've got a joke about this many news stories in a day, and then I'd often get my jokes in the Poke or in the whatever newspaper was, and I'd get the hits from like the dopamine hits from that. But what does it doesn't actually do anything, and instead it just meant I wasn't working on all the things I should have been, and it took a real effort. I think it was very much helped by Twitter kind of being taken over by Elon Musk, and the whole kind of the increase in trolling, and suddenly realizing people weren't even seeing the tweets. And I almost cold turkeyed it. I just overnight went, I'm just not going to post on here anymore. And weirdly, well, not weirdly at all. It's just, I just feel like it's given me so much more brain space. Because I mean, it also helps, I think, when I was particularly doing adult stand-up, grown-up stand-up. Adult stand-up always sounds like it's something to porn. Grown-up stand-up for grown-ups, and doing like a political podcast and stuff. I was watching the news all the time. I was always on Twitter reading all the journalists. I've cut all that out my head. As much as I say you should pay attention to politics, I've stopped. And I now feel like it's freed up all this creative space, because I can just kind of go off on weird flights of fancy and imagination and not worry about what some awful politician has said today.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like if I'll be sat at my laptop and I'll be working, and I'll have a thought. It won't be like an intrusive thought. It'll just be like an observation. Like, I woke up this morning. We're just recording this after England played football. They played Serbia yesterday, and I thought, why do England play like strangers? I just thought that, and I was like, I've got to do something with this thought, and I had to like shut down Microsoft Word, open up Twitter, and just get out of my system. And it was like, I don't know, almost like relief. And I put up Word again and started writing again. And so Twitter's quite good, I think, if you just on your own in a house, and I'm not going to see anybody today other than when my kids and my partner comes home, and it's like, oh, I can interact and I can fulfill a basic psychological need. and then I can go back to my work. So there is something in that I find quite positive and helpful. But my problem is that it doesn't just happen once a day. It happens about like 30 times a day. And it's like, no, nobody cares. It's not that helpful. It's not that insightful. And it's tapped into that need, I think. And that has made us slightly addicted to it. So what I'm saying is I need to do what you did and just not.
But it's tricky because I think you're right in that. Like, I really
about
think
the England
that
team.
writing...
Yes, I am right, by the way. I am right about the England team. They do play like strangers.
But I feel like I always feel like writing helps me write more. So like, like the feeling you come off stage after a gig, your brain's racing. I need to
yeah.
Like writing, I need to be writing something to help me think of writing other things. So Twitter is good for that. But because it's such short, fast hits, and like you said, because you're posting so many times a day, I was posting, I don't even know, it was just ridiculous. So many, and that was what was damaging. Whereas now I'm like, I try to like spend, if I've got a few things on the go, I'll spend a bit of the day working on like the podcast script I should be doing now, and then a bit of the day working on an animation script. And so I'll jump between them because I feel like that gets my brain ready for the next. What do you know what I mean? It sort of charges it up, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's kind of like managing your procrastination and using it as a way to kind of like keep the oils greased, but not getting to the point where it's like a completely different kind of tangent that you go on that distracts you from like your purpose. So that's quite a good tip actually, to treat it like writing practice, and to have in your mind that this is serving a larger purpose. This isn't indulging yourself. This is literally part of something you have to do. So have you always had the tendency to go straight off your planned task, or is it something that's come through being a creative?
Yeah, no, I think I always have. I go off on tangents in conversation with people. I can't help it. I'll be talking to them about something and I'll suddenly find that I am miles off, and my brain is always like, just, and also while people are talking to me while watching TV, I'm always somewhere. I often just stray off into other chains of thought. And I find that really useful for writing and really hard for life and focusing on things. And again, I'm I can sort of manage it in my head, but it is a problem. It's tricky when there's something I really like. Here's a good example. I love computer games. I don't get to play anywhere near as much anymore. Every now and then I will play a game that absolutely absorbs my brain and it's all I want to do. And I will find it very hard not to think about doing that all the time instead of doing work. But if there's a series that I'm loving and I know the next episode's coming, but if I'm not, I've basically got to not be attached to things. So Twitter was one thing. I've got to kind of remove these other things from around me, and then I can get on with the work. And it does help when I'm excited about the work as well, because then I'm like, right, well, I can't think about anything except the work, and then I'm really useless to talk to about anything else.
It does help.
I actually want to do that. Yeah,
it does help when you can recognize when you're attached to something that is sort of mildly addictive or addictive. So that's actually really good, because it took me ages to realize, oh, I'm actually addicted to this site. Like I kind of look at my phone and I think, oh, let me just check. And then I think to myself, well, why do I have to check? I just checked it 10 minutes ago. So I think that's actually quite a good tip, to just like recognize what is you using something in like a normal way, and what is you using something in a way that is perhaps detracting from other things. And we could probably look at so many things in our lives and reevaluate our relationship with them, whether it's like video games or language learning apps, maybe that are run by tutorial owl.
That's my current bad one. Yeah, that is really bad.
Yeah,
Duolingo. My God, that owl and its demands are awful.
Well, turn off notifications. It always says, "Do you want notifications on?" I'm like, "Oh fuck no way! Do I want you bothering me?"
Turn them off. But then you see, like, again, I just do it in the morning. I just do it. I do it in the morning. I do it at night. 15 minutes Duolingo. I do feel like, at least in my head, learning another language is like my brain working in a way. Like I'm using it for something. So that's got to help me somewhere else.
I agree. No, I agree, and I think it's all about taking back. It's like taking back control, like Nigel Farage, but not of immigration. Just like of what you want to have in your brain and what you want your brain to do. And I think sometimes it's like, are you controlling the machine or is the machine controlling you?
Yeah.
And I think with things like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, um, all the other ones, Facebook, it's not us controlling the machine controls us.
Yeah.
And literally, and I think the problem we now have is, as particularly comedic creatives, is that we are increasingly required to service the machine because it is
Yeah.
the mechanism by which most comedies consumed these days. Like people are watching their sketches online, or they're watching clips of funny shows online or whatever. And so we're in this weird relationship with this thing where it's like it's destroying our careers, but increasingly it is the fulcrum of our careers.
Yes.
Like without it,
Yeah.
we don't really have work.
Yeah. That's a big problem. I think, I'm sort of as you know already, but I've kind of collapsed sideways more into writing, and it's been a real relief to not have to self-promote, which I think has also helped me then avoid Twitter, because so much of it was I'm gigging here, come do this, and it's like shouting into a void to
Yeah.
make sure someone sees you. But then you get, then that kind of fulfills the addiction part of it. I was going to say, like, do you find as well though, like it's quite I don't know, and I find that I procrastinate less if I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. So whenever I have to do stuff I don't like, I am really bad at avoiding it until the last minute.
So that's really interesting. So this is when I had a normal job, and I had a normal job for a long time. So
Mm,
it was such a big part of my life, my normal job. And I didn't enjoy it that much. I cared about it. I always wanted to kind of like earn my money, but
yeah,
I didn't enjoy it. And I wasn't that much of a procrastinator. Like I wasn't like I definitely was one of those mouse movers. Like, oh, I'm working. Like, so I wasn't 100% productive all the time, but my procrastination wasn't noteworthy, and I didn't enjoy that job. Okay.
right,
I genu- generally enjoy what I do. Actually, most of the time, I think I enjoy everything I do, because even when I don't enjoy it, it's still something. So let's say I've got to write like a script and it's not particularly like my cup of tea thematically or whatever. I'll still enjoy the fact that I'm writing. It's still a script. It's still
right,
fiction. It's something of my imagination. So I'll still, there's always the beauty I think of how things are worked out is I always enjoy it, because it's always something that is close. It's there or thereabouts. It's not like I don't really want to be doing a voiceover for Boots today, but you know what? It's fine. It's there or thereabouts. So it's like it's fine. And but at the same time, the procrastination levels are just mental. Whereas when I had to do like highlight reports or mess about with pivot tables or all this other stuff, I generally kind of got stuff done. But I used to get stuff done really quickly. So then when my work was done, I just used to faff about. Do you know what I mean? I was doing stand up in those days. So I'd be like, oh, it's 3 p.m. I can clock off now. I've done all my tasks. So I can, do my writing, do my gigs. So I think maybe it's more to do with what we were saying earlier about boundaries and having stuff to do. If I've got a list of things to do and a limited amount of time to do them, I can't procrastinate. But if I've got
yeah.
a list of things to do and all of the time in the world to get them done, which is kind of what more closer to what I'm doing now, then it's kind of like, I will have very clean bathroom grouting. Like I will scrub that grout. I will, the things I have cleaned in this house. I will vacuum behind the radiators. I'll find if there's dust to be removed, I will find it before I sit down and get my work done.
That's great though. What a great way. I try and do that. I try and go, well, I've got to, like, tidying is a really good way out of it, but also, yeah, you actually get to tidy it. And it's really annoying when I don't procrastinate and go, the place is a mess. But yeah, that's really interesting. It's funny you said I had the same when I was in a day job, a couple of day jobs that I had. I got in trouble because I'd basically annoy everyone. I'd finish all my work really quickly and then annoy everyone else with all my ideas for sketches and gags and send them stupid emails, and I'd get regularly told off. And I'd be like, well, I finished my work like 2 hours in today. This is easy. But I wonder if again that's like, this sounds a bit snobbish maybe, but not that work isn't taxing your brain in the same way creative work. Like it's easier to just get done. Whereas if you've got to create, you've almost like got to, I don't know,
it,
grasp at your
it's
brain and
harder
magic like
brainwork.
straws. Yeah, yeah,
It's massive. It's harder brainwork. So something I had to learn about myself is the whole time I had a normal job. This is just to contextualize it. I think it's about 15 years. So I got into, I had loads of jobs, but I got into a proper job when I was like 21, 22. I didn't leave until I was like 36, 37. Okay. And that's like, this is like, getting nine-ish, leave five, six, sometimes seven-ish or whatever, right? And but consistently, I would always fall asleep in meetings. Like I couldn't deal with, I would like, when you're fighting to keep your eyes open, there was always something about the format of a meeting that I just couldn't tolerate. And I it took me to leave my profession to realize that that just didn't suit the way my brain works, because I get to things in I get the point of things very quickly. So when I'm
Mm.
in a room full of like 10 or 12 people who need to be taken step by step through something, and I'm already at the end, that was just really challenging for me to kind of like, I'd be like, why am I here? I know what needs to be done. I know this information. Most of the time I would have written information, or like I was never a time waster. And you get a lot of time wasters in office environments, and people like to waste time in office environments because the more time you waste, the less time you have to do stuff, which I hated. I'm very much a doer. um got what I don't know even why I said all of this stuff. What I've gone off on a
You said
tangent, haven't I?
it just doesn't fit you. It doesn't fit
Yes,
you as
that's
a,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, it didn't fit me. And then now, I mean, so you actually, I think you're right in sense of, it's not, maybe the word isn't taxing brain. It's like about what fits your
Mm.
brain.
Yeah,
What
yeah, yeah.
what vocational outfit looks best on the way your brain works. And if I'd stayed in that old job, I mean, you must know my gross misconduct story.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure you told me this before, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that arose from basically being in an office, not having much work to do, that no one would give me work, and I was just email my mates because I was really, luckily I was vocal at the time about the fact that I wasn't being used correctly and that there wasn't enough on my plate, and that I was trying really hard to find work. So when they got done for sending lots of silly emails, I could say, well, actually, yeah, I shouldn't, you shouldn't use the word, these words in this language on work emails. But at the same time, I was kind of screaming from the rooftops, like, I'm just coming in every day and doing nothing. Like, this is really
Yeah, yeah.
unacceptable. So when you are creative now, you're responsible for your workload. So there's no one for me to shout at anymore for being bored. Like if I'm sat around
Yes.
twiddling my
Yeah.
thumbs, that's on me. And I like being in control of that now. Because when I wasn't in control of that, it was really horrible and I didn't have enough to do.
Yeah, but then it's also like why it's hard when you're your own boss. It's hard to then not like sometimes hard to get to the work. 'Cause you're like, it's only me that I'm disappointing, and I don't care. And I'm like, it's yeah. And do you know, you reminded me. I used to work with someone. One of the council jobs I had, there was someone there who she'd worked there for 25 years, and you get like or you got like an extra day or 2 days holiday per year you work there. So she would come in only for like 6 months of the year, sit there, do nothing for six. Like she wouldn't even get her work done, and then she'd just disappear. And she was having the best time. And I was like, yeah, you can handle it. I would go absolutely bananas,
I
like
couldn't.
trying to just sitting there for more holiday. Like it doesn't work for
But
me at all.
I met loads of people like that in it, and it's really like seductive, that
Mm.
that kind of attitude to work. And a lot of it is like indoctrination. I think not indoctrination, that's the wrong word, but a lot of it is kind of like, for some people, their aim in life is to kind of get like a good salary, by any means necessary, and achieve like a completely epic level of work-life balance, like so epic. And that person has the work-life balance ratio is insane. But the weird thing is, it isn't actually balanced because there's no fucking work there. So this is a
Yeah,
crucial
yeah,
part of work-life balance. So for me, the work part was really important, and like so important. I don't know why, because I'm not the most industrious person. I haven't invented a very cool light bulb in my life. Do you know what I mean? I don't carve out hearts for people from a liver and stick them into another human body. So I don't really want to be snobbish about the value or the kind of work, but the work still has to be kind of, you want to have a sense of achievement, I think, most
yeah,
days. Because,
yeah,
and I think, kind of looking back on my work career, what frustrated me most was that you, particularly when you work in the public sector, which is what I did, your sense of achievement is really tied onto so many things that aren't linked to you. You know, so when I was building roads, like you couldn't build the road without somebody very important in government going, you can build this now, and
Sure.
they would say yes or no based on the most spurious reasons, and that was just so frustrating. Or when I was doing, yeah, when I was doing other things, like you'd work really hard to do something, and some lord or lady or some fucking whatever enclave in this country would be like, we don't want that, and then you wouldn't get to build whatever it was he was building,
Yeah.
and that was
Yeah.
really then and then when it's like for most people in that situation, there was like, oh well, my job was this little part of the pie, and I've done it, so never mind. But I'd be like, oh my god, like this is so unfulfilling, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I struggled with that. But even in those days, procrastination wasn't a particularly big character trait of mine as much as. But I think I was kept busy. I think that's what it was. I was still kept busy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that whole thing of like well, I hate that thing of like, do you live to work or work to live? I always hate that because I'm like, I want to do both, but I think like you know, in those jobs, I actually earned a salary and that was great, but I hated it and I would procrastinate and my mind would wander. Whereas then for years afterwards, I would do the work that I found creatively fulfilling, but I wasn't earning any money. But that felt better. That still feels better to me in the long run. But then you're right. Then I started to procrastinate more. So I don't know what.
Yeah, I think it's just I'm starting to think that this is just kind of, if you have the kind of, not that any one personality can be creative. I think anyone could be creative really, but the kind of personality that lends itself into being a creative is sadly prone to thinking I can start after I've done this. I can start after I've done that. But I think that's what you goes back to what you were saying earlier. That's because our brains know it's sort of like necessary. It's like water in the garden, you
Mm,
know, and it's like you can't just kind of just sit down and start working. You've got to kind of work and ponder. And I use the word masticate a lot because I think it's a
yeah.
really good word. You have to just kind of like chew through stuff in your head.
I'm
In a
such a child. I still laugh at
I
that word,
know, I
even
know.
though I know it's
It's,
what a child. Yeah.
it's
It
we've got
sounds like
we've
it's
got we've
rude.
got to
It's
put it
not
in the
rude.
we've got to put it in the
Yeah.
next Bust or Trust podcast. I'm
Yeah.
gonna, yeah.
No, we won't get
That's
through the episode.
that's the challenge, and do that corpse him. So
But
that's
do
why I
you
think
have
it,
like
yeah.
I was gonna go. I was just gonna say that I now there's also like some days when I realize now like on Friday, for example, last week, I can give this a recent example. I was away from Monday to Thursday. I got back and I was like, Friday, I've got to do all this work. And I just didn't. And I was so tired. And I just went, you know what? It's all right. I'm tired. I'm knackered from traveling. I'm knackered from all the other stuff I've done in the week. It's okay for me to have today off rather than do terrible work. But it's taken me years to be able to almost allow myself that because technically I did just procrastinate all day Friday, but also I think if I'd done anything, it would have been rubbish. And so I think
Yeah.
I'd have get this done quicker and better if I chill today, actually rest my head. But yeah, and that is procrastinating. But it's again, like I said, like saying before, like I've almost allowed myself to do it.
Well, I was just speaking to another guest called Linton, right? And he had this
Mm.
amazing term, and his term is this, and I give this as a gift to you: intentional rest. And I thought that's
Oh,
so good. And what he sort of said was, he was like, you know when you're tired, and you know when you have been busy, and you know when you're going to be busy. So it's okay to schedule
mm,
intentional rest, whoever you are and whatever you do. And we live in a kind of society where it's like, you work, you earn money, you spend that money on necessary things you can live, and sometimes unnecessary things, right? But
mm,
like that's not there's no biological truth in that. Like that people who work 70-hour weeks aren't supposed to physically do that. Our bodies weren't designed for that. In the same way, our bodies weren't designed to do lots of things we force them to do. But because we can override our biological reality, we can build skyscrapers and go to the moon and things like that, but that comes at a cost. And that is why intentional rest is really important, because whilst we sadly have to serve the conditions of this society that we live in.
yeah.
Some people don't. Some people go to the forests and generate their own electricity, and good for them. but most of us are not an Extinction Rebellion, and we have to serve this society in some way and make those compromises. But it's, if we acknowledge those compromises, then we can then say, well, what can we do to make up for them? And intentional rest is a really big part of that. Like, you traveled. Okay, we weren't designed to travel like that. We were designed to go from migrate from kind of field to field and like nick someone's potatoes maybe, and maybe wrestle a cow. I don't know, but we weren't really designed to like be flying around different countries to different country and working and staying in hotels and eating hotel breakfast. Our bodies were not designed for hotel breakfast like at all, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when you got back, of course you're going to be tired. And
Yeah.
intentional rest would have been a big part of dealing with that.
Yeah. What is it? I did this. I think I'm allowed to talk about it. I may have to tell you, make a swift edit. But I did a survey the other week. So in 2016, I think it was University of Manchester, this whole big survey about creative people, and I took part in it because I thought, hey, it's fun. I think we got like a £20 Amazon voucher or something, and it was like all about how does it work, and what do you do as a kind of freelancer, and how does it work, and all this. And they've done a follow up, which I've just taken part in. And one of the interesting things they were saying to me there, because it was something I talked about as well, but how the pandemic, as much as it was an awful time, obviously, but loads and loads of creative people found it amazing for having a breather to be able to work out what they wanted to do creatively. Like, because for me, it's when I kind of switched to writing for animation instead of doing stand up. And I was thinking about how, like in Iceland, I think it's Iceland, I might be getting it wrong, but everyone, if they want to, gets like a year to change career. If you read out like your career, you can say, I'm going to change, and you get given a year of government funding to work out what it is you want to do. And we don't
Wow.
get that. Like, we need, as creatives, like, especially when you're working just to earn a living, which is what I was doing with stand-up, is like, I've got to survive. I've got a gig all the time to pay the bills. And the pandemic forced me to stop. And then I started writing scripts and going, oh, I really like this, but I don't have a choice. I've got time and I've got to do something creatively. And I think sometimes we need that, like that intentional rest, almost like forced on you to not another pandemic. I don't want another one of those, but
No.
it was
Not a
nice to go.
pandemic. Some
Yeah.
another reason, maybe like locusts or like something like three-body problem, like aliens.
Yes,
Something.
that would do.
So,
That would
no,
do.
yeah, just another thing, please. Like keep it, like mix it up a little bit. You know what I mean? Not another one.
Change up the disasters. Yeah, it's good for
Yeah,
us to, yeah,
change losses. Yeah.
variety.
So intentional rest, I just love that term because when when I had a normal job and I procrastinated less and I was less frantic about how I was using my time, rest was forced upon me because you didn't work on weekends
Mm.
or because I was, I spent the last 5 years of my career doing stand up. So I'd finish my work, go and do stand up and then come home. And so I didn't have time to process my sort of needs or what rest I wasn't getting because I had so much to do with my time. And the weird thing about being a creative is that we're creative in a world that values the production of something and then the selling of that said thing at a profit, ideally for profit. And that's so you make a pen. I said that's not a pen here, very, very creative person. And you make it and it costs X amount of money to make, and you sell it for X amount of money, and then you clean off the profits and you pay yourselves and you generate more money for a pension scheme, maybe, and maybe you put solar powers on your factory and you do all these things, right? But when you create, like there's no real value. A joke, how much does a joke cost? How much does a script cost? How much does a sketch cost? How much does a podcast cost? I can tell you actually now, fuck all. But like, how much do these things cost, and how much will people pay for it? And so it doesn't suit like the financial society and some people, because it does suit, because if you make a film and it costs this much, then films generate X amount of box office, but there were all these factors that influence that aren't actually related to the quality of the film, right? So very expensive films make a lot of money, but they're the worst films on the planet. So some might say. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm going somewhere with this. So the point I'm making is that how do you then program rest into that system of production that where you can't work out your hours, you can't work out its monetary value easily. And so rest is scary because I can't rest because I've made this thing and I've got to sell it, but then how much I'm going to sell it for? I don't know who's going to buy it. And then if someone does buy it, it might be shit, people might hate it or whatever. And so it's hard. And that's why you have to kind of, a bit like how we have to divorce our biological reality from social reality, we have to divorce our creativity from the world of business and stop thinking about it in that way. Because the two things don't fit. Does that make sense? I think.
Yeah, it does make sense. It's very hard to do, and I think particularly if you can't afford to do it, I think that's such a big thing, in that you have to be able to afford to have the rest. You've got to be able to stop and slow down and you can't do that if everything you're doing you're doing because you need to earn a pitiful amount of money for creating something. I remembered some years ago, I think Izzy City said to me that she always makes sure that in every week, because she doesn't get a weekend anymore, she makes sure she gives herself a weekend, 2 days in a row off. And I was like, wow, that's really inspiring. I'm going to try and do that. And I never managed it. And then I remember seeing her years later saying, do you remember you saying this to me? And she was like, yeah, I never managed it either. So it was like, okay. It's totally useless. But I feel like you've got, yeah, it's all this kind of
But
I
the
don't know,
weekend
it's
is
really
the
hard to do.
concept of the weekend is a product of industrialization. You know, that's
Mm.
a industrialized nation product concept. Like you go. We used to, have weekends and we fucking farmed goats, and that's all we did. Goats don't go, oh, it's a Saturday, I'll graze my, it's a
They don't
Saturday, I'll
take
graze
time off,
myself.
yeah.
You know, it's not a Sunday. Sheep don't go to sheep don't wander into their correct field by themselves on a Sunday because their owners aren't there. So even the idea of kind of slaving away Monday to Friday and like having a weekend for yourself and a day of rest, they come from kind of, you know, non-real things. That's all made up. So us trying to do that isn't going to work. But I think that's again, it just goes back to the idea of, well, how about something I do is like I don't schedule like intentional rest into my calendar, but I do kind of have like I'm because I'm got such a terrible memory, and because I'm such a bad procrastinator, I have to be really intentional about how I schedule my days. But then I can kind of look at where it's really crowded, and I can be like, well, if I've achieved certain things, I'll reward myself with rest. And that
Oh,
works
I
quite
see.
well for me. So I have my little sit down and cups of tea, or not even rest. Sometimes it's like going out for a run, but whatever I do to relax and things that I enjoy, it becomes like a reward in my brain for things that I've done. And that's how I manage myself. That's the only
Right.
way I can be my own manager. So do you have little techniques for either getting things done or making sure you take time out?
No. Um, um, no, I do. I've got like you, I've got lots of to-do lists. I've got like kind of a big one on my computer that I just try and work my way through. But I think I've just got into a habit of like, especially like we've got this weekend coming up. We don't have to see anyone this week. We don't have to do anything this weekend. So I've just said like Saturday, Sunday this weekend, we're doing nothing. I'm not going to do any work. I'm not going to touch any work. I probably will, but I'm going to try really hard not to. We're not going to do it. And it's like, we just try and mentally block out a day, all of like as a family, just where we're not doing anything. And it's hard though. It's really hard. And I don't manage to do it like you. And what's annoying is I did a bit like you said, running. I used to have a thing of like I go to the gym twice a week, and then I've got these injuries since November, so I haven't been. And now it's like, well, I haven't even got that. So you know, you sort of you lose these moments. And I don't commute anywhere. Commutes are so good for that sort of reading a book, or I don't have to commute anywhere. So yeah, it's hard.
But I tell you
I
what, it's not. Oh,
yeah.
oh, sorry. Okay, sorry, I
I
interrupted
was
you.
just going to say that I do now find that one of the downsides of not doing stand up and working the day is that I get to about 8 p.m. and my brain just doesn't work anymore. So now I'm like, well, I have to watch TV or do something because I can't come up with anything good at this time of night anymore.
Oh, see, that's lucky. I'll always be a night person. I'm not a morning person, so I'll always be a night person. But so luckily, like that, if like that, and the reason I've been a night person is quite good if you're a procrastinator, is that you can procrastinate all day, and I can put the kids to bed, and then I can just start working at 8, and it just that's quite that's quite good for me. So, and I think I just train my brain to work well at night as well. What I was going to say is, and it's a real shame that they're not that easy to obtain. But one thing that does really help in terms of procrastination and rest is children. But you can't just like go to like Argos and like, oh, I'll have a child, please. Like, unfortunately, they kind of,
Well, that would also mean you could return them, which would be
oh,
really handy at times. So
could you imagine? But yesterday, put Ayo to bed and he comes wandering in to my bedroom, and he's got like sick on his mouth, like crusty sick. And
Oh
I'm
no.
like, where you sick? And he was like, I was sick in my mouth. I was like, well, you can't be sick in your mouth. You can even sick out of your mouth. Where were you sick? And he goes, good night. And he runs off. There's a bit of sick in my house somewhere. No idea where.
Surprise.
It's like,
Yeah,
but it was all crusty and dry. So and then I went to his bed. His bed was dry. I looked around. There's
that's
no sick on it.
so
But
grim.
so one day I'm going to come across a bit because kids are just they put so much shit in their mouth. They just occasionally have a little and that's
Yeah.
they're fine. It's like when you're drunk and you're sick and you feel better. That's what kids are like. But it's just anyway. It's just I just remembered that
Well,
I'd forgotten that
there's a
happened.
nice.
Yeah.
He's helping your work there because now if you procrastinate, you'll have to tidy up. You'll have to find it. If you do your work, you won't
I
have
can
to
look
hunt
for that
down the sick.
sick. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like
Yeah,
either way.
I can look for that little pool of vomit. But anyway, what was the point I was making? First of all, it's like you have to look after these kids. Like it's literally,
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
said this before. It's literally the law. Like if so, I don't. You
yeah,
don't have a choice but to stop working at 2:45 to pick up your child. Otherwise, you're going to get a phone call. And I don't have
yeah,
a choice but to stop working it and put dinner on, or to like give them dinner and put them in the bath and do all that stuff. And that is so I'm so grateful for it. Like it's such a nice way to
mm,
switch off and invest my time into you know what is like a much more important thing than sorry for all the people that I owe work to or work for. But there's just nothing more important, and that's lovely to it's a lovely way to divorce yourself from this kind of material construct of a society that someone's just made up than to invest time in another human, and it's a real privilege. So that's good. But
yeah,
then the
yeah,
other
yeah.
thing that is procrastination. So many socks, so many pants to fold, so much laundry, so much shrapnel in the house to tidy up. So do you find that it's quite good, like in terms of how you spend your day? It's like handy, or is it like, oh god, I've got to do more stuff for this
It's a mix because it's like you
vomity
said, like
child?
we're lucky that we do the school run is a walk away, so I get a 20-minute walk there with the kid. That's I can't get any work done then 'cause she talks at me, but the 20-minute walk back not with the kid, and I've got headspace in this, like, and then the same again in the afternoon. It also encourages me to move during the day when I'm sat on my bum. That's lovely. But then there are other times like bedtime where my daughter refuses, like you put her to bed and then she keeps getting up, and it's like this bedtime's gone forever. So anytime I plan to do work at night, it's always got like 400 false starts. And then by the time I actually get into it, it's like, well, I can't do anything now. So like it's tricky, but it gives you some sort of structure to your day. School does. And
Yeah.
then half terms and holidays completely ruin that and it all goes wrong.
Oh, yeah, I've sort of given up now. So the other thing I do is if it's like a half term, or if there's this time where I know I'm home, I don't even expect to get work done, like unless it's like they're in bed. And the minute I kind of made that, because I used to try and work around them, right? So especially because when they're babies, you can work with them because they
Yeah,
just
because
lie
they
there.
sleep in the day
Yeah,
and or
they,
yeah, that's brilliant.
and they're very easily pacified, really. I mean, if you're lucky. But then as they get older, it's just the only alternative is to give them an iPad, and then that's just like I can actually see their brains getting smaller and smaller. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh god, no, they start. I can hear rattling. It's rattling around in that skull. So so I sort of made a decision like, oh, if there's and sometimes it's very prolonged. Some holidays are 6 weeks, but I just was
Yeah.
like the minute I made that decision to be like, oh, this block of time now is parenting, and I can't afford the childcare, and I can't and so I can't do anything other than parent. So I'm gonna just dial down all expectations I have of myself and what I'm going to achieve. And that does affect my money, and it affects my career because maybe I say no to things I don't want to say no to. But it was like, but what else am I supposed to do? Do you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
that this is just the reality, and it's what our parents did, or similarly it's what some parents don't do. And I guarantee you in 20 years time, the person that whatever panel show I said no to, or whatever sketch I didn't do, that person isn't going to remember it. That person isn't going to give a fucking shit. But what the person who will remember things are the kind of hopefully the adults who will remember that I painted their faces badly, or you know shouted at them for messing up their Play-Doh in the wrong colors, and spent a morning meticulously separating it all again. And that stuff I think is more important. So obviously you have to make sure your shit's paid for and you're making money. But I draw quite strict boundaries around parent time and working time now.
See, this is what I add parent to my, my job description now, because it's like, this is important, you know. It's not a job, but it is a big part of how, you know, it's probably the most important thing I have to do.
Yeah,
and then everything else is secondary.
So it's not procrastination, it's parenting, and that feels like a nice way to end this. I'm going to ask you one more question because we're going to end now. I think I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so much for your time, Tiernan, and it's been such a nice chat. Lovely, we're going to press stop. You're going to go off. What have you got to achieve today? What are you going to do? I'm going to be a motivator. What have you got to get done?
I'm going to get, I said, I've got to get this podcast script for you and me to record in about a week and a half's time. I've got 2 more to do for I'm going to plug our podcast because you're on it. It's Bust or Trust, a kids mystery podcast. And by next Friday, we have to have 4 scripts, and I've done 2, and I've got 2 left. So
let me do one, because I actually have it on my to-do list, and I keep carrying it over.
Well,
and I look.
You stop procrastinating, and I'll stop procrastinating, and we'll get in our scripts by next week.
After this call, I'm going to go to the folder. I'm going to pick one, and I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. Okay, it's going to be, and I'm going to do it. Absolutely done. I knew there was something I was meant to do.
We'll see who actually manages to get their work done most. That's the key.
All right,
brilliant.
Thank you so much, and Godspeed.
And to you.
That really was such a good catch up. I spend a lot of time with Tiernan, so it's nice to hang out with him whilst we're not working and understand what's going on underneath the bonnet. Tiernan is a really talented writer. If you love kids telly in the UK, he's probably written an episode or 2 of your favourite shows. So do check him out, and his socials will be in the description of this podcast. Obviously, though, don't spend too much time on the socials because I don't want you to procrastinate too much. And yeah, you probably guessed that was actually recorded quite a long time ago. We would not talk about Twitter this much because we've all left and we're all on Bluesky now. Anyway, thanks so much for listening to this podcast. Really appreciate it. I hope it was useful for you. I certainly love these conversations. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch up next time.